Since its introduction in 2022, the Cadillac Lyriq has been one of the most polarizing EVs on the market, thanks in large part due to its long and lanky proportions. But if you ignore this car because of its curious styling, you missed out on Cadillac's quickest car ever, not to mention a very comfortable and luxurious cruiser that can even steer itself. But does all that make this an EV worth buying? I'm Tim Stevens, and let's check out the 2026 Cadillac Lyriq in this review powered by Capital One Auto Navigator. Up front, the Cadillac Lyriq makes a strong first impression with its aggressive nose and Cadillac's signature vertical headlights, which look particularly menacing at night. Move behind that, we have these strong 22-inch wheels, which are part of the Cadillac V performance package, which we'll dig into in just a few minutes. Keep on stepping back, and that's where we find the charge port for the Lyriq. Lyriq charges at a maximum rate of 190 kilowatts, which honestly is a little bit slow by modern standards, but that's still enough to get you about 90 miles of range in 10 minutes of charging in the 102 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is situated down in the floor of this long car. Now look at the profile. Cadillac calls this an SUV, but to my eye, it looks more like a station wagon. And station wagons aren't exactly cool these days, but to me, this is a very sophisticated, very good-looking machine. The luxury appointments continue in the rear seat as well. We've got quilted leather plus heating in the rear seats, plus that 23-speaker sound system from AKG, which is incredibly powerful, continues to the rear seats with speakers above and below. But the biggest luxury back here, though, is how much room I have. I've got a ton of leg room, I've got a lot of headroom, and plenty of light thanks to the panoramic moonroof above. The in-your-face styling continues here on the interior, which is maybe a little bit too loud for some, but I quite like this here too. We've got a lot of nice detailing here, like this kind of grid pattern here on the dashboard, some contrasting materials. It's overall very dark in here, but if you go for different trims of the Lyriq, you can get some brighter colors, which will liven things up a little bit. But overall, I like the mixture of metal and leather and plastics in here. Everything feels good, everything looks good. And this to me feels like a really nice place to be. It's also very well appointed from a control standpoint. Cadillac didn't lean too far into the touchscreen. Yes, we do have a touchscreen here. We still have physical controls for changing temperature, for example. I've also got some physical controls in the steering wheel. So it's not a full-on touch experience, which I also appreciate. But we definitely have this beautiful curved touch display here, which fits in nicely to the design of the vehicle. It doesn't look tacked on like a lot of touchscreens can. And it flows all the way across from the far left of the steering wheel all the way to the right in one continuous sweeping shape. On the right, this is my main interface where I can have things like integrated Google Maps and other navigation features, but also this car has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay wirelessly, which makes this one of the few General Motors EVs that still has that functionality for phone projection, which is missing, unfortunately, a lot of GM EVs. You've also got a touchscreen portion here on the left where you can control your headlights, change the different gauge cluster settings, and change some other things as well. So we've got a really nice use of space, and that continues on the steering wheel as well. I have some physical toggles here, plus some capacitive touch sensors as well. The most important one, though, is definitely this V button. That puts this in the most fun mode, and to see how that works, we've got to hit the road. But before we hit the road, for videos on the latest cars, trucks, and SUVs, make sure you subscribe to the Capital One Auto Navigator channel. Now, the reason that we have that V on the steering wheel is because this is the top shelf Lyriq-V, Cadillac's quickest car ever, with 615 horsepower through all four wheels thanks to a dual motor setup. That means this thing can sprint from 0 to 60 in just 3.3 seconds, which honestly is a little bit more than I need. If I were looking for a Lyriq, I'd probably go with one of the two lower trims, with the base rear drive model, which has 365 horsepower, still plenty. That one starts at about $60,000, or you can step up to the dual motor all-wheel drive, which is just a few $1,000s more. If you want this Lyriq-V, you're looking at a minimum of about $80,000 to start, but this one, as configured with a couple of options and destination and everything else, you're looking at closer to $90,000. For me, the base editions are just as comfortable, just as luxurious, and just as good looking, but a lot more affordable, again, starting at about $60,000 and 365 horsepower. That's plenty for me. And if you do go with the lower trim, that means you get the maximum range available in the Lyriq, which is 326 miles on that rear drive model. And I know a lot of you are wondering, is that an actual realistic number? Can I actually get 326 miles on a charge? Because that's the EPA rating, but that doesn't always correlate to real world mileage. In my experience from testing the Lyriq and also from user groups online and seeing what actual users are getting in their cars, yeah, that's actually a realistic number, and you can even exceed it if you drive conservatively, which means, again, that lowest trim is probably the best value from a range standpoint as well. And even on that low trim, you're still getting this beautiful interior. You can still option up the sound system and everything else. You still got a really nice driving, really comfortable, and in my opinion, really good looking SUV. You can also add on Super Cruise onto any trim on the Lyriq, and that makes this an even better road trip machine. With Super Cruise, you get on the highway, you push this button on the steering wheel, and the car takes over the steering for you. That's one of the best hands-off driver assistance systems on the road today. Now, it is a driver assistance system, which means you still need to be paying attention. The car will be actively watching me to make sure that I am watching the road ahead. But so long as I'm paying attention, the car handles the steering, and I can sit back and relax and enjoy my coffee or whatever audiobook I'm listening to. I've tested Super Cruise for hours and hours and miles in various cars, and it does a really remarkably good job. So between that combination of super comfortable, luxurious cruising, high performance if you go for the higher end models, and the sophisticated styling that again is not everybody's cup of tea, but tastes pretty good to me, the Lyriq is absolutely a winner. And so is this an EV worth buying? I say yes, it absolutely is. If you're interested in the 2026 Cadillac Lyriq, check it out on Capital One Auto Navigator.